Hey folks, Fernando doing another video for the Modern Survivalist, and today I'm going to be talking about holsters, something that's been requested a few times already, and I think it's worth talking about, giving a little bit of advice, at least based on what I know. Now, you basically have a couple options in terms of holsters, in terms of materials. You can either go with leather, which is a more traditional thing to do, or some sort of plastic polymer type of holster. My advice, honestly, go with plastic, go with synthetic. It's not as fancy, it's not as cool, but it is just more functional. Leather does degrade. It is a natural material, does degrade faster. It does absorb moist, sweat, blood, rain, anything wet. Leather is going to be a lot more affected. Plastic, not so much. Now, having said that, notice this. In my Blade Tech inside the waistband holster, the strap hasn't snapped. So, even plastic is not immune. It does degrade and does break eventually. Usually, though, it lasts longer and it's lighter and it's not as sensitive to humidity as leather. There's been cases of certain leather holsters where the holster deformed. Once it's wet, it deforms a lot easier. So once the leather holster is wet, it deforms and it may catch on the trigger guard. There's been accidental discharges in that way. So it's something to keep in mind. And having said that, there's some old leather holsters that are just bomb-proof and they last a million years. This holster, for example, it's over 80 years old and it's still very much functional. You know, it's soft, supple enough. It just works as it's intended to. This is an old police holster from the Buenos Aires police back in the day when they used 1911s and Ballester Molinas with a pouch for two 45 magazines, and the gun goes in there, and man, it still works. I actually could fit my Glock 17 in here without any issues. So just a few things to keep in mind. Of course, you can go with inside the waistband or outside the waistband holster. My advice, especially if you're going to be using your gun for practical shooting, start with a typical cheap Phobos type of holster. I'll leave a few links there below, something like this or similar for you guys to keep in mind. This would be the typical holster that, no frills, goes outside the waistband, just goes in there, you draw, you shoot, and you can take it to a class. It's not going to be anything fancy or cool, but it's just going to be getting the job done. For actual carrying, you want to get an inside the waistband holster, something like the Blade Tech that I have here, or a pile of similar models. Again, I'll leave the link there in case you want to check these out. But what you're specifically looking at is avoiding the crappy nylon holsters that we see all over the place. Those things simply suck. They have no foam retention to speak of any kind, and one of the big disadvantages is that they flatten, especially if it's going to be an inside the waistband holster. What's going to be happening, and when I see someone with those holsters, immediately you know they have no experience, no training, nothing, because if they've taken even a single class where they've drawn their gun, they would have realized that an inside the waistband nylon holster just flattens instantly the moment you draw it, and you cannot bring the gun back to the holster. With this kind of holster, though, a harder synthetic one, yes, you can reholster the gun without any problem because it does not deform. Same thing applies to some of the cheaper leather holsters. For example, this is a pretty cheap leather holster, goes outside the waistband, so it's not as critical, but notice the foam retention that it has. It's kind of floppy. The material is also pretty thin, not really all that great. That holster over there, that's nicer quality. That's made in Eastern Europe. It's a pretty decent holster. This one they have here for the P7, also quite nice, quite decent holster, made in Australia. Check out how thick that leather is. Check out the stitching, reinforced with a thick thread all around. Notice one more thing, and this is kind of important too. The kind of gun that you have, I always recommend the Glock pistol. Why? Well, because it's super reliable, it is tough, most people shoot well with it. But one of the other things, all of this stuff is more available for more common guns. Yeah, like your Glock. With your Glock, you're going to be finding holsters all over the place. Anyone that makes holsters has to make a holster for a Glock. If not, they have no business. Now, more rare models, if you're going to be going with your HKP7, good luck finding a holster for your HKP7. Yes, and even the HKP7 is somewhat still, famous, and it has a good recognition. But it still took me a bit of time to find that. Going to to the market and finding your rare holster for your rare uncommon gun, a rare model, it's going to be a lot tougher, a lot harder. So, if you want to learn how to carry and use a firearm correctly and avoid some of the more common mistakes, there's my book, Street Survival Skills, available in Amazon, following the link below. See you in our next video. Have an awesome day.